Hey, so good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, once more. And thank you very much for making time to join the 2026 post-budget review by the Chartered Institute of Taxation. For us professionals, the post-budget review provides a very structured platform for us to discuss and examine the key fiscal measures that the government in power normally introduces. So we're here to assess their practical implications and how it affects our economy. And as you know, as Chartered Institute of Taxation, one of our mandates is to promote informed tax discourse. And so last year we held it. In the past, we've been holding it. So this year to the session, we expect that it's going to create an avenue for expert analysis, a well-balanced debate, and a deeper understanding of how the 2026 budget will shape the country's fiscal direction. We have put together experts who are colleagues from practice. We also have from the authority side, GRA side, we have one colleague who is also as part of the panelists to share their views. And then from the ministry side too, we have our own. He has been with the tax policy units. He also shared his views on some of the strategies regarding revenue mobilization, how government medium-term priorities look like, and what exactly does this budget mean for us. So at the end of the day, your say is the most important for us. What do you say? How do you see things? And so we will open the forum for all of us to speak and give our views so that any unintended consequences that may come from the tax aspect of the budget can be looked at. At this point, we have our president, our first female president of the Institute, Madam Ernestina Pia. I will call on her to, give us some welcome notes. So, Madam Tina, if you can hear me.
Thank you, Timo. Distinguished speakers, esteemed members of the Institute, colleagues from industry, academia, and the public, I warmly welcome you to the Chartered Institute of Taxation Ghana's Post-Balance Review for the 2026 financial year. This annual engagement has become one of our Institute's most important platforms for deepening national dialogue on policy and fiscal governance. As an institute committed to promoting professionalism, integrity, and excellence in taxation, we believe that informal public discourse is essential for shaping an efficient and equitable tax system. Today's session provides us the opportunity to analyze 2026 budgets, interrogate its assumptions, and understand the impact of the government's policy direction on taxation. The reforms introduced in this budget, including significant changes to the VAT regime, revenue mobilization measures, and the medium-term fiscal strategies. We are privileged to have a distinguished panel of experts joining us from the Ministry of Finance, from Ghana Revenue Authority, and the private sector. On behalf of the Council and entire membership of Chartered Institute of Taxation Ghana, I thank each of you for making time to participate. Please ask questions and contribute. Let us know what you think. I wish all of you a productive, insightful, and forward-looking discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, our First Lady President of the Institute. Mr. Daniel, no, I'm trying to promote you to the panelist platform. So if you see any notification, kindly join the panelist for me. So we have Daniel No. He has been the head of tax policy at the Ministry of Finance before. Today, as we speak, his portfolio is a technical advisor and a technical advisor to the Commissioner General on everything tax. He has seen it all, hovering between two administration. Dan will give us an insightful view of what is happening today or what Parliament has passed into law. Again, we have our own Abeku. I call him the tax prophet. He preaches taxation. Abeku Jampansa. Abeku is a partner at PwC. He has also advised a number of clients. I think one of his key interests is indirect tax. And I won't be wrong if I say at PwC he focuses on indirect tax. So Abeku has also joined. Abeku, thank you very much for joining us. And then finally, someone who has always been teaching a lot of students. He taught me before. I'll call him Professor Dr. Nab. Thank you very much for joining us. At this moment, let me just go straight to the point and just take some opening remarks. And maybe now I'll come to you first. Your general impression first on the budget, everything. In short, what will you say?
All right. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to our esteemed listeners. The budgets as a team resetting for growth and economic transformation. But for the purpose of this discussion, I want to look at the fiscal aspect. In Africa, normally when budget is drawn, the expenditure is drawn first before the revenue. So it means that the revenue becomes the balancing aspect of the budget. And we do know that budget is actually an important tool that is used to advertise what government intends to actually raise by way of revenue, grants or borrowings, and the expenditure that is supposed to actually be incurred. If you look at the budget, the minister promises jobs, economic transformation, and growth. It means we need money to be able to do that. And the money must come from our taxes. Unfortunately, if you look at the neo-liberalization of our economy, you would agree with me that we have a lot of persons who are operating in the informal sector and are not contributing significantly when it comes to tax issues. Most of them actually evade taxes and thereby putting burden on government and the few persons in the formal sector who are paying. One would have thought that the budget would rather seek to increase taxes or introduce new taxes. But the minister actually has disappointed every person. What he has done is that he has actually maintained and even reviewed the taxes in a manner that it will provide some economic benefits to businesses and also to individuals. If you look at the budget again, it actually tells GRA that it has to focus so much on compliance. So compliance is actually going to be the orientation of GRA if the revenue must be maximized. Indeed, the fact of the matter is that GRA has done so well over the years to raise the revenue. But there are a lot of challenges, and the challenges are known because a lot of people are not paying taxes. And we have also become citizens who do not want to report wrongdoings. If we're really focused and interested in building our economy, then we should actually be able to report wrongdoers. Some few people are doing by way of whistleblowing, giving information to GRA to actually chase persons who are making income and are not paying taxes. So I believe strongly that yes, these budgets really seeks to sacrifice government revenue in terms of how much government is going to get. But GRA would have to actually work hard to raise the revenue using compliance procedures. And I am also happy that the minister has also assured the general public that the ITAS, that is the Independent Tax Appeals Board, will be in full form next year. When that happens, trust me, it means that case of objection will be determined very fast and very efficient. When that happens, we believe strongly that we will be able to raise the needed revenue. And trust me, if we are able to raise the revenue to transform our economy, then we are going to get more revenue. If we are able to raise revenue to create jobs, it means we are going to get more revenue by way of taxes. So it means that we really have to work hard. And this requires all hands on deck. All persons must actually work hand in gloves if we have to transform this economy. As we go deeper, we'll look at the impact of the revenue measures as been promised. Then we can dissect them and look at how we can transform our economy with our bold actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Knapp. For once, I was just wondering why you mentioned that the minister disappointed us, but eventually you accepted that, yes, he made us, all of us happy, but by not introducing new taxes. Thanks so much for your opening remarks. Let me go to Abiku. Abiku, if you can hear me, your general impression.
All right. So moderator, thank you so much for asking me to share my comments. Before doing that, I would like to say thank you to the Institute for inviting me to have this opportunity to share my views. I obviously do not take it for granted whenever I have the chance to share views with professional colleagues. I consider this as a peer review platform where you are speaking to people that are expected to be on top of their game as far as taxes are concerned. Our theme today is the 2026 budget in focus. Ghana's fiscal outlook for 2026 and the tax policies. The challenge you have is Mr. Moderator, when the person that goes ahead of you is a very competent and established tax official who does not have GTech issues with the use of doctor. You do not know what to say. And also you want to avoid a repeat. I likely agree with his point, but obviously from the side I sit and focusing on the tax measures, I think what the minister did on behalf of the president in broad terms is good. I hold the view that tax simply, or in broad terms, is a product of rate and base. Yes, when you look at it that way, you would always say that if the rate goes up, and rate going up here means introducing new taxes or increasing the rate of existing taxes, you would get more revenue. But I don't hold that. I hold a view that taxes influence behaviors. And that view, I think, is publicly known. Taxes influence behaviors. And therefore, if as a result of some sort of taxes, businesses cannot grow, that would affect your base. If as a result of taxes, businesses now begin to do things that they cannot have done under the lenses of the various journalists, then your tax revenue would not perform as expected. So to my mind, I think what the minister did on behalf of the President of the Republic of Ghana, as regards the tax measures in broad terms, I'll come back to the specifics later, I think is good. The whole idea of carrying us right from March through to the media review and then ending up in the November presentation in respect of 2026 and the medium term is good. I believe that as citizens of this country, I believe that we have a duty to make sure that there is efficiency in every aspect of our lives, especially as far as public sector is concerned. So if the minister's focus is to say, I would want to do things that would improve compliance. I want to do things that part of the law that are not being implemented would be implemented. Then I think it's a good thing. In any case, we all complain that there are people who are in the informal sector that are not contributing as much as they ought to contribute. Once again, Mr. Moderator, I've chosen my words carefully. I'm not saying that the people don't pay taxes. I am saying that they are not paying as much as they are supposed to pay. Because when they import things, they pay things at the port. As to the question of whether they pay the right thing or not, I guess the minister has given certain indications in the budget. When they engage with companies like that of your company, you would typically withhold. Yes, it's not in all cases that you can withhold, but at least they pay something. So the conversation that we are having now is that for those material payment, for those material income, are the people paying the right amount? Those are the conversations that we need to have. So to conclude, my view is that the budget, in particular, the tax measures that we have in the budget, to my mind, in broad terms, are good. They are good because they would force businesses to take away the excuses that we previously had as to why we thought Ghana was not a good place to do business relative to the environment or relative to our neighbors. And once again, I am focusing here on expanding the base, as in getting people to do business properly, pay the taxes, getting our public institutions to be a lot more efficient, because now you are not just going to get, on quote, potential increase in revenue just from increase in tax rates. And then I believe that the minister will have an opportunity in the mid-year, if the projections are not going as planned, to begin saying things. But let me end by saying, I am never an advocate for significant media reviews because they tend to affect planning significantly. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Abeku, on your last point. Indeed, anytime changes happen in the media, it's quite difficult. We'll go into the details. Let me go to Mr. Daniel from the Ministry of Finance side, and also now a technical advisor. Dan, from where you sit, what's your general impression?
Good afternoon, colleagues and everyone on the panel. Thank you to CITG for this opportunity. And a little correction, I'm a technical advisor at the Ministry of Finance, not to the Commissioner General, please.
Very well, thank you.
General impressions, I think I'll be very brief on that since it's general. But the theme, as has been mentioned earlier for this budget, is resetting for growth, jobs, and economic transformation. And our job this afternoon is to look at the fiscal outlook and the tax policies. What I'll say is that the general theme when it comes to revenue or tax in that sense, if we look at paragraph 711 of the budget, realize that the theme generally is to broaden the tax base, not necessarily by burdening existing taxpayers. So what we are looking at here are systems that would generate stronger tax compliance, digitization of revenue streams, improve generally compliance, as has been mentioned, and then fully rolling out the unified taxpayer identification system. And through that, we expect that we'll look at other digital tax systems that are there, and then also look at the digital economy and how best we can bring in taxes from that portion of the economy which really we haven't concentrated too much on. And all these will be underlined by the continued implementation of the medium-term revenue strategy. I always encourage us, for those of us who haven't had a look at it, that if you go onto the Ministry of Finance website, there's a section which looks at revenue publications. You'll find the medium-term revenue strategy there. And basically, if you have a good read of it, you'll find out most of the things we are talking about are anchored in that strategy. And so generally, that is what we want to do. We just want to continue the current trend. What are the other policies we'll talk about? In the 2025 budget, we talked about policy reforms in relation to VAT, which I'm sure we'll report on. The other developments that have taken place in this year, there's the issue of the ITAB that was just mentioned, the revenue administration regulations, and all those things. So there are quite a number of things that were promised in the 2025 budget, which I'm sure later on we'll talk about. But this budget generally plans to continue with more compliance-based activities so that we'll raise the revenue, not necessarily by introducing, again, new taxes, but rather by broadening the base on which Abeku talked about, which enables us to generate a little more revenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, for your introductory remarks. Now let's go to the major tax measures. I mean, this area is what, as tax people and businesses, we are interested in. We've seen a number of measures talk about the VAT threshold increase from 200,000 to 750,000. We've seen some comments from Guta. COVID-19 is gone. The Minister of Finance said about 3.7 billion is given back to the economy. We now have a restoration of the input-output deductibility of the GET Fund and NHIL. We also have VAT on mineral exploration. We have zero rating of local textiles. And then again, the digital enhancement, the fiscal electronic devices. So I want you to look at the generality of the tax initiatives and what does it really mean? What is the implication for businesses? Maybe let me start from Dr. Nab. What does it really mean? Or you can pick any of the initiatives and then maybe give us your thoughts on that.
Thank you very much. And let me acknowledge Mr. Edward Jamra, my former commissioner. I just realized that he's on the call. Yeah, so the initiatives as outlined in the budget has to do with, first of all, our VAT Act. So we now have come 2026, we are now going to have a new VAT Act. What we have done is that we have looked at the problems associated with the current VAT Act. We try to actually enhance it, looking at making it business friendly. The project owner was Mr. Jamra. He did a very good job, on it. So I wouldn't want to talk about it because very soon a lot of things will be said about it. But be that as it may, the major thing that we want to talk about regarding what we are likely to see has to do with the recoupling of the levies. You all agree with me that we had VAT that was 15%, then we had the levies. Taxpayers were claiming both the levies and then the VAT. Then along the line, we thought that, look, there was a need to actually take a second look at it. So we reviewed it and made the levies non-deductible. That actually created a lot of difficulties for businesses. It actually emasculated their profits and made it very difficult for them to have cash flows. Now we have reviewed our, this concern because a lot of businesses have actually come up to cry so much. And has looked at it, and then in the budget, as we speak now, it has actually been. So now we are going to have the VAT, which is going to be 15%, and then the levies. And the interesting thing is that incur input VAT. As you plan to sell your products, in charging the output VAT, you will not take into account the input because you are going to claim it. That for me is actually very refreshing because it is going to enhance the cash flow of businesses. The government is actually going to lose if you look at it carefully. But government is prepared and committed to actually sacrificing its comfort to ensuring that businesses are able to do well. That for me is very significant. And apart from that, there have been some few changes that we'll soon see in the budget that would also create some kind of value for taxpayers or the business community at large. Then another one has to do with, again, and let me even just buttress this. So the current VAT regime that we have actually creates some difficulties. So we have the VAT effective rate being 21.9%. As we speak now, come January, it's going to be 2%. So 1.9% is very significant for businesses. You and me will think that 1.9 is not, but for a businessman, that is very, very significant. And a lot of them have done their analysis and they are very much happy about it. Yes, you mentioned Guta. That Guta has raised concerns. I think that it's early days yet. If Guta should actually take its time to do proper analysis, they will realize that, yes, it has helped. Why are they talking about it largely? They are saying that we had the VAT flat rate. The VAT flat rate now is giving way for the standard rate. Now, what it means is that if you don't meet the threshold of 750,000, you are going to actually be delisted. Now, the fact that you are going to be delisted, for Guta, they are saying that it is going to actually create some kind of a competitive disadvantage for the bigger businesses that are going to register. I must say that we have two types of taxes. We have the direct tax and the indirect tax. The indirect tax is actually based on what we call transaction and event. We are not here to say that when VAT is imposed, it will not really affect the consumer. It will affect the consumer. There's no doubt about that. But the truth of the matter is that in every setting, when VAT is imposed, there are some persons who would naturally just escape from the net. What it means is that their prices will be relatively lower. That is actually going to be the case. But there's one thing that we have to actually take note of. When they sell, because their prices are lower, Guta is saying that they would actually be able to sell far more than the others. What they have failed to understand is that once they sell far more than the others, then they are going to be transitioned from non-registration to being registered for VAT. So eventually that's how it is. It is better to actually build those businesses down there and grow them and get them to actually also charge the VAT. It is not actually the case that in some other countries, you are going to have a situation where every person will pay would actually register and charge VAT. It doesn't happen that way. So we are saying that it is early days yet. They should do their mathematics. I think, Council Timo, you did some analysis, not quite long, and the rates of change between those who register and those who do not register is quite insignificant. So for me, I think that, yes, it may have an effect, but they shouldn't just, they should look at the good side of it and not be too much interested in asking for a review because it's too early. We need to actually start the journey and see how it would actually go. Again, the fiscal electronic device that the minister also mentioned is going to actually be introduced. Indeed, invigilation, or let me say the GRA's visibility has actually been limited. So this device, assuming it is properly introduced, assuming it is properly administered, GRA staff can sit in the comfort of their home and be able to monitor real time what is happening on the business climate. That for me is going to actually help us be able to shore up so much revenue. So yes, even though, as I said earlier, there is going to be reduction in the VAT, but this mechanism would also help us be able to actually improve upon the VAT collection. Again, the minister also mentioned introduction of digital solution to enhance VAT administration, collection on cross-border digital transactions. Currently, what we have done is that non-resident persons that provide electronic, products in Ghana have, by law, registered for VAT, and they are supposed to account for it. I think that internationally, what is done is that some countries have introduced what they call a purpose code. The purpose code is supposed to actually help check what those persons are filing and then accounting. So, for example, Bank of Ghana, assuming we want to take that route, what Bank of Ghana is going to do is that every quarter or every half year, they will give the list of all persons who are non-resident who have actually been paid money. And we can look at that and look at their declarations and be able to actually get to know what is happening. I thought that was the route we wanted to follow, but we have decided to look at the other way around, where we are going to engage a system consultant that would embed systems on all paying platforms so that we can get the VAT real time. Actually, if you do your research, you realize that is actually a novel in our country, in our system. For me, I think that let's try it and see, but I'm sure it is going to actually create some kind of a value addition for us. Again, the good news is that COVID-19 has been abolished. A lot of you were always asking, when will it be abolished? We don't have COVID. A lot of people also expressed consent that abolishing it was not the way to go. We could as well just probably change the name to maybe health something so that we could still have it. But the government thought that, look, to actually keep faith with the people, let's take it out because that was a campaign promise. And for me, I think that it is actually going to help reduce cost of collection. So for me, I think that I would just say, I wouldn't want to mention also that my colleagues will also have something to bite.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that is quite innovative, very helpful. This is a budget, to watch. And for us in GRA, we have to just work hard because it is really going to portend negative for us in terms of revenue. But once we are able to put our act together or get our act together and ensure that our compliance activities are actually activated, certainly we'll be able to have a good story. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Doc. That was very insightful. I mean, your take.
You are putting me behind my senior, but let me give my take. And I think some of the points I've raised previously, I'm going to now begin to expand on them. My first point is I'm trying to change the use of the diction informal economy to saying that is the Ghanaian economy. That is how we all grew up, and that is what we came to understand. I strongly hold the view that the design of systems should consider policy as a starting point, but should not neglect the practicalities. Part of the issue that Guta is asking for, my belief is that let us meet them halfway. We have been in this country where laws have been passed, and those laws could not even survive, certain provisions of those laws, could not even survive 2 months because there was a general outcry against those laws. If the people are insisting that we should not take away the VAT flat rate entirely, I think it is worth considering. A lot of them may not necessarily comply or properly comply with our income tax rules. But one of the things I have observed and of course, that's why we have a panel here to discuss, and adverse or variant views are welcome, is that a lot of them that are registered for VAT, when you go, they know how to write, quote unquote, the 3% for you. I strongly hold the view that I don't think the flat rate should remain at 3%. I think the 5% rate we brought at a particular point in time should be the new flat rate. So what is my proposal? My proposal regarding the request of goods are as follows. One, government decision to revise the general mandatory registration threshold from 200,000 to 750. I have so much respect for the guys at the Revenue Policy Division. I know they've done their analysis. Then I believe to meet them halfway, we could have created between 750 and 1 million for them. That would be a way of trying to tell them that we've sort of heard you, Kakra. And then over time, we can gradually move them. Do I agree with the Guterres' entire conversation around competitiveness? No, I very much agree with what Dr. Nab said. But sometimes it is also good to let people feel a bit heard. Going back to the initial comment I made, that I think the minister, on behalf of the president, did so well to carry us through March, July, into November. I did say that when we get into the nitty-gritties, I would then expand and show my areas of departures. So the first thing is, yes, they consulted, but how many of you on this call saw copies of the VAT bill? In a lot of jurisdictions that I've had a chance to interact with, such a major change will not happen without people seeing the bill and discussing the text of the law. Because I tell people that when you read those budgets carefully, he keeps saying changes including this. So what are the other changes that have not been mentioned? It is in those nitty-gritties that businesses, in their bid to comply, would begin to see the practical challenges of those things. So just to quickly summarize and to move forward, I think as a middle ground, government should listen to them a bit. I don't think if you are selling beyond 1 million Ghana cedis a year, we should mind you with a flat rate. I also believe that there are so many even advanced jurisdictions where they have lower rates which are positive and are not the standard VAT rate. So I would pray government to listen to them, because these issues at a point can become political. And when people play with the political stuff, we will throw away the entire policy and the technicalities supporting those policies. Having said that, I am very much aware Parliament has passed it. Let's give a chance to see how it works. But in the event that there is a pushback, and of course myself and my clients would not be in those domains, but in case there is a pushback, I think let them feel listened to, and let us try to migrate them gradually. Having said that, the VAT structure that we had in the past was, I'll use a familiar term, avoidably complicated. Because it's a technical group, we personally wrote to government to outline why we even disagree with the interpretation of the law. That said, we proceeded because we need to proceed on a balance to see what we're going to do under that circumstance. I pray and I hope that that structure for the VAT that we had, as was said in the Bible, that structure that we see or that we saw, may we see or may we saw them no more. May it never repeat again. Because that structure was not a structure. And once again, because it's a technical conversation, we're going to have a technical conversation. That structure was not a structure we should have gotten ourselves into. At the end of the day, look at all the budgets and look at the public pronouncements. The average Ghanaian came to appreciate that the standard VAT rate effectively was not 15. It was 21.9. I actually hold the view that the true effective VAT rate in Ghana was not even 21.9. It will play in the neighborhood of values beyond 25%. But I will spare you the mechanics as to how I arrived at that conclusion. So if the average Ghanaian, if official government documents have come to appreciate and begun using terms or borrowing terms like the effective VAT rate, why don't we just have a single rate? Because the businessman's customer, anyone doing a proper analysis of the country called Ghana and properly minded, that you don't just look at the text, but you focus on the substance, would appreciate that the VAT rate or the standard VAT rate in Ghana will not be 15, but 20%. Having made this point, I would want to expand this to other laws that are related to the VAT conversation, and I'll end on the issue of avoidable complications once again. We pay our parliamentarians and members. Let's not take this lightly. Your tax and my tax finances the lifestyle of our politicians, including our parliamentarians. We obviously do appreciate the long hours that they spend debating on our behalf and trying to make laws on our behalf. And so we need to give them some life to make them a bit comfortable. Our politicians passed a law in 2017 basically saying that items could be earmarked. We will use a law to change allocations. So if you recall, the NHIL, the get fund that we were collecting, were not delivered as they were fully collected until in March this year, when we began to revert some of them to say earmarking would be equal to allocation. So if we've gone through the pains, giving our parliamentarians the comfort to pass these laws, what is the point calling VAT standard 15 plus a 2.5 standard and a 2.5 education? Just before somebody says, oh, I beg you are calling for something that will not come, I'm saying, hold on. In the year 2000, when we introduced the Get Fund and came up with a source of financing, one of the sources of financing for that was an earmark portion of 2.5 out of the 12.5 that was collected. And it worked so well until 2018. In 2003, 2004, and this is my view, stand to be corrected, there were instances where, because we saw how good the earmarking had worked, but because we probably knew what we had done around Kumibreko, just maybe, the effort and the public view to now say that we are increasing the standard VAT rate to 15% was not there. What did that lead us, calling professional members? That led us to a state whereby we had an NHIL law, or let me call it NHIA Act, with schedules, and over time we forgot that when we were amending the VAT Act, we should be amending the NHIL schedule.
Yeah.
We got to a point whereby now what we have to do was that somebody's light bulb came up and said, oh, let me remove that schedule, create an amendment to tie those schedules to the VAT law. But that was so late. That was too much work. That was, in my view, time that Parliament could have used for something else. To land on this point, the breakup of the NHIL, Get Fund, COVID levy, VAT led us to a point whereby you could potentially file up to 5 returns in a month if you were paying attention. Import VAT, NHIL, Get Fund, COVID, standard VAT, withholding VAT, 5. I think that the people of Ghana are a lot more mature now. Once again, I'm here to pay a lot more attention to the bill. But if what my senior said is true, that what Parliament finally passed is a standard VAT rate of 15 plus those extra 2, all that is doing for us is that anybody doing an analysis of the number of taxes in Ghana will potentially count all those as number of taxes.
Yeah.
But the average Ghanaian knows that the effective tax rate is 20%.
It's not 15.
So I will end at this point.
Yeah.
Once again, I'm saying that I'm raising this because I know this is a technical session for us to avert our minds. I may not touch on the political dimensions enough, but just keep the technical conversation as members of our prestigious institute. So once again, moderator, I would want to land on this point.
You've raised a number of key.
No, just a minute. Permit me to raise the last point, even though I was going to end. The last point, which my senior friend mentioned, which I loved, but I'm going to raise a couple of issues for us to think about, is the issue of the fiscal electronic device. This is not entirely new. We have a law gathering dust on our statute shelf, as I tend to call it, passed in 2018. How would this fiscal electronic device play within our current infrastructure? What is the way forward? Why couldn't we implement it? Why are we doing it now? Is it going to be replacing the others? These are questions that we need to ask. Because we would end up beginning to create, once again, avoidable complications. And let me start my count. I just like the numbers. If this FED comes in to add to the others, unless once again the revenue and government puts out how this is going to work, we'll have the commissioner's book. We'll have computer approved ones. We'll have certified invoicing, aka EVAT ones. And then lastly, we'll have FED. How do we get our people to really know which is which and to be able to detect even fake ones? But once again, I believe that since this panel is diverse, my quote-unquote ignorant comments may be corrected. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator.
Abigo, I think you were, I don't know whether we're reading the same script, because I was going to ask Daniel and Dr. Nab about the implementation and compliance considerations. Now that we have the fiscal electronic devices, and we also told that effective date is 1st January. I was wondering, are we ready? Are businesses ready? To what extent has the practice notes? And so Dan, I'm coming to you with this preamble. The practice notes, are they ready? Is the fiscal electronic device going to replace the EVAT? What happens to the EVAT? Because EVAT started, day 2021. We haven't still finished rolling it out. A number of organizations like my own, we've not been able to fully roll it out. How does all of this in play when we are talking about this implementation and the reform? What is going to happen? And I want to put this question to Dan and Dr. Nab, since you are closer to policy. We are private people. How does it play? What's your view? First, Dan.
All right, good afternoon again, and it seems I have to start my presentation from the end and at the end at the beginning. So to the direct question that was just asked,
Yeah.
I believe that we need to sit back a bit, because these are items which basically are related, and they fit different market segments. So the fiscal electronic device system actually includes the e-invoicing system. So you have those. So let's look at it in a way that it's actually, you have an application that sits on various systems. So you have the e-invoicing now that it sits on your, should I say, on your computing system. Actually, you can actually have the invoice actually working even from your mobile phones. So that is a digital Fed. And we have multiple versions. We have this e-invoicing one, you direct us, and there's what we call a signature device, which you can put on multiple systems. You have the same Fed, which relates to your, is also automated. So the electronic invoicing is about the same thing, the computer-generated invoices. And then we have the point of sale devices, which also form part of the fiscal electronic devices. So actually, it's all the same thing. What you do is that you basically segment the market and the taxpayers based on which they can use. For some of them, you give them the option, they pick one. For some who basically can't do too much, they will use the point of sale devices. So it's the same thing, is the same thing, but then different devices for different market segments. That's about all. Now, you asked about practice notes. I think we often mistake practice notes as something that normally should come with legislation. You don't necessarily do practice notes for every legislation. Practice notes actually are supposed to provide some level of interpretation, especially where there's misunderstanding over interpretation. And so the Commissioner here comes out with that, look, this thing that there's so much you inquire about, this person says to do it this way, this person says I'll do it this way, this person says I'll do it this way. This is the way the Revenue Authority looks at it. And so if you come to us, this is the way we interpret it, this is the way we will do it. And based on that, it serves as a guide, because the practice note can be there, and the taxpayer can say that I still don't agree with your interpretation. So you can't challenge the practice note, but I'll do something else. So if it comes, then we'll litigate over it. Now, there are other administrative guidelines, which normally, other interpretation documents, let me put it that way, which also are used to give understanding. So there's some guideline, okay, that this is the Commissioner General can give two types of guide. There are guidelines he gives to his officers that are one uniformity in how you operate. So this is the way we will treat things whenever they come our way. You can also give guidelines to help taxpayers and analysis and saying that, okay, we are coming out with VAT reforms. We have the fiscal electronic devices. Now, these are the guidelines as to the usage when it comes to this person. So actually, the guidelines for taxpayers are an extension of the regulations, because you have the act, you have the regulations which help with administration, and you come out with other documents that so as part of publicity, these are guidelines on how to do it. So I think let's understand the hierarchy of these documents. And sometimes we bandy them around and it's like, oh, there must necessarily be a practice note. No, the practice note is when there's a misunderstanding over interpretation. So a practice note normally we won't even come out with. But sometimes the Commissioner anticipates that, okay, there might be some interpretation issues with this. So let me come out with a practice note even before the issues crop up. So that's what happens with practice notes and with administrative guidelines. And so, as we said, 1st January is when the act comes into force. Now, what we need to understand is that there are some actions that you cannot take before the act comes in. The act must be there for you. So you can come out with your documentation, and there's a lot of documentation that has been prepared for this particular reform based on the discussions we've had. And I understand that because if you previously would have sent the documents to was the consultants and some others for review before we worked on it. But he will also agree that there were some prior consultations that were held on some of the things we wanted to do, not in terms of the letter, but in terms of what we planned generally to do. And so all these issues were there. The first, not everything will be done immediately on 1st January automatically, because we need to get standardized equipment. As mentioned, you don't want fake equipment. So how do you determine this is not fake? The Revenue Authority and the Fed Act actually outlined how this was supposed to be done. To the 2018 Act has already given a basis to it. The certified invoices, we have some basis for doing this. And so these are all parameters that are there, which we will engage the public on as we roll out the VAT. As for the rate, 15% is immediate. The threshold issues that Guta is talking about is an interesting one because, and we've had a long series of engagements on this. What maybe we've done now is to reduce the challenge from 3 levels to 2 levels. They are arguing that there were 3 levels of charging VAT. Those who were exempt, those who were on the flat rate, and those who were on the standard rate. And you could have somebody, you can go to the market and you have these people side by side. There's someone dealing in exempt products who is selling. You have the one who is charging 3%, who is selling same goods. You have the one who is charging standard, same goods. And so they've always been asking that we should find a way of merging this. I found it interesting when with their reaction, because we've had this issue where, look, it seems we might have to move to standard for everybody to avoid the 3%, the flat rate and the standard rate issue. Mm-hmm. So the nice thing that we at Guta, we always engage. I'm surprised that they didn't even come and speak to us even before going out and starting out. It doesn't matter. We'll still engage with them, and I'm sure we'll come out with something that will be at least acceptable to all of us. And as Abeku said, the law has been passed. We are basically waiting for the necessary processes to be gone through so that we can get presidential assent and then start the implication come January. The other thing, as for the changes in the law, maybe one of the other things that there weren't too many differences. The rate, basically, flat rate went off. The flat rate went off. What else really is happening there? Because, and for listening to Abeku, we decided that instead of having an upfront VAT for non-registered persons who are supposed to register of 15% and then have a 2.5% for, if you haven't done it for NHO, 2.5% if you haven't done it for Get Fund, we decided that upfront VAT, if you've not registered it, it's just 20%. So that is the same rating we are putting everything together. So Abeku, for that one, we've taken out the complexity.
God bless you.
Hopefully we'll do it for some others too for you in the future. Anyway, right. So thanks. Generally, that's this thing. So on the VAT, there are a few other things. We talked about VAT on exploration, which basically is the relief. And as I mentioned, there are not really too many major changes in it in terms of the act. It's more of consolidating the items. As we go on, maybe I'm sure we'll come out with
then I want you to talk about this reward scheme. What is it about?
Okay. So the reward scheme, and actually is one of the bases for the automation, what we want to get fed and as. The reward scheme generally is that we expect that when you make a payment for an item on which there's VAT, you would collect your invoice. So the reward scheme is that if you collect your invoice, we will, at the end of the period, a month, or we are finalizing that at the end of the month, end of the quarter, or whatever period is agreed finally, you will be able to, we'll just sample, do a random, we would have know the invoices in itself, so we'll have the invoices. We'll just do a random sample of invoices and reward those who've collected those that come out of the sample will reward them for collecting their VAT invoice. Because if you collect a VAT invoice, it will come in this. Yeah, so the central database will have that information. So it's to encourage people to make sure that they get an invoice.
So eventually, Commissioner General's VAT invoice will wipe away.
Yeah, generally the booklet, we are automating everything. So the booklet is something that is basically once we fully implement the Fed, we will not use the manual invoice again.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
But
but the only thing is that you will still be required. You see, you will still be required to get an invoice because someone can decide that yes, I'm selling to you, but I won't issue an invoice. Okay. So there's still the need, even with the Fed, there's still the need to have the invoice to collect your invoice.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about 256. There are other voices online. So please, we're going to make time soon. We'll be opening the floor for your questions. You can either post it so that we can ask our panelists, or you share your views and we can read it. But Dan, before you drop your mic, do you anticipate any challenges when it comes to the implementation?
Well, let me put it this way. For every legislation, there are unintended consequences. So when we start, I'm not saying there will be challenges, but there could be. And we stand ready to work on any challenges that will arise.
Any of them off head that you anticipate?
No. Really anticipating not too many of it. Not really. I can't think of any straight off yet. Yeah. Okay. But before I go off, as I said, I started from the end of what I wanted to say. There's one significant thing which I want us to bring our minds to. We seldom talk about it, but that is the issue on the customs side of things. If you realize in the budget, we had an extensive write-up when it comes to relating to customs issues. The misclassifications, the misinvoicing, all the things that are happening, the IDFs, the import declaration forms, what's the word for it? Yeah, so many things the shipping issues, so many issues are there. And customs compliance is going to be one of the things that we are going to major on, especially as a lot of these things worry local industries, especially the manufacturing industry. And so once people are smuggling and they are bringing goods in, once the market is being flooded with all manner of things, there is the need to look at it. I mean, some of the things have been gruesome. They've been there for a while. We are tackling them. Information relating to ports of origin, where shipping coming from different places come and then their products. There are some very interesting findings that since we started this exercise have gone on. Some shipping lines have been charged for providing documents, whether they are employees providing documents that shows that goods are coming from somewhere other than where they come from. And a few other things, and even the classification, the valuation, we've all known, the under-invoicing. So we are putting a lot of digital systems to just make sure that on the customs side, we are checking the dumping of goods here. We are tackling smuggling. Everybody agrees that smuggling has been lasted as long as there's been trade. And so you might not be able to eliminate it altogether, but at least we can minimize the effect a lot since it's affecting our local industry. So it's one of the things that we are really going to work on so that it evens the competitive place for our local industries for them to operate. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And that was very interesting. Dr. Nam, let me come to you. When we hear compliance, what is going to change? Are we going to see more of policing or more of audits? What do you anticipate?
Yeah, so we are going to widen and deepen our compliance strategies. So if you listen to the budget, the minister spoke about sustained tax education. So that is what we are going to do. So in fact, the things we are doing will widen and deepen them to make sure that especially the informal sector is actually taken on board. So that is what we intend doing. Audit, yes, we'll continue with audit. But yeah, suffice to say that if we are able to actually do a lot of compliance around filing, registration, payment of taxes, then we'll do less of audit. So these are the things that we want to just look at so that we can spare taxpayers of a lot of audits. So I believe strongly that yes, there will be a combination of many factors, but what is critical is that or widen some will also deepen some. But let me just also add a quick one on to the practice notes that we spoke about. Mr. Jabra will not be too happy with me if I don't mention it. When the journey began on this VAT reforms, he said that we needed to actually come out with guidelines. So as we speak now, we have actually been able to put together guidelines. So very soon, hopefully by January 1st or 2nd, as it were, the guidelines will be out so that at least areas that we have identified that we need to actually clarify or make sure that a lot of persons understand, we would work on them. So we are almost done, and very soon you have it. So just to lay your fears and to tell you that indeed we have also thought of concerns that you have expressed, and we are working towards them. Thank you very much.
Great. Amigo, let me come to you. If you are supposed to advise businesses on this platform, what will you tell them as far as these changes are concerned? What are your top most significant changes that they need to get ready?
All right. So for me, moderator, it's simple. What government has indicated to us in this 2026 budget, and I think my senior Dan, or whom I call Uncle Dan, and then Dr. Nab, have all said that it's going to be a bit more pressure on the revenue because governments, in broad terms, I keep emphasizing this because I'm going to pay attention to the text, in broad terms, have seemed to be giving us a lot of relief. However, if you compare the tax revenue numbers, government is expected to collect more for 2026 than in 2025, which clearly tells you that compliance will be big. So what am I going to tell businesses? There will be minimal room for non-compliance. So get close to that consultant of yours and get those consultants of yours to do the right thing. Let me also use this opportunity and happy that the technical advisor to the minister is on this call and deputy or head for strategy is on this call. Remember what I said from the beginning. We give our parliamentarians the comfort to ensure that they can do work for us. We told them that go and pass a Revenue Administration Act. They passed that act and included a requirement that those that will be consulting for tax on behalf of others should be persons that are well trained and that have proper ethics. That law was passed. Next year, probably I'll have to buy a birthday cake, and Timo, you pay for it. And we can't to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Revenue Administration Act. To my mind, we've given all sort of interpretations, and for those of you who've dealt with me, I respect everybody's interpretation, although I don't agree with it, that we are waiting for a certain list, a certain thing from the revenue before we can begin to ask a simple question that you representing somebody, are you a member or are you an approved tax consultant? To my mind, I'm not too sure how that list would override the Chartered Institute of Taxation Act 916. I'm not too sure. What am I saying here? People must eat, I appreciate. But we can start demonstrating and ensuring that Act 916, which probably next year will buy a 10th birthday cake for it, are persons that are properly trained by this institute. A few weeks ago, we saw a disciplinary note from our sister organization. Here, the note here is the Institute of Chartered Accountants. where they had investigated some members and said that, oh, there is room for improvement. Those members may have agreed or may not have agreed. ICAG has published their view and the disciplinary actions. Imagine if those members were sent to court. How long will it take us? And what is the threshold of even establishing their culpability or otherwise? In other words, the point I'm making is that getting people to do the right thing, ensuring things work, is likely to be improved losing our disciplinary procedures than the laws. So the challenge I'm throwing to our friends from the revenue, don't apply this in all your offices. Start applying it with LTO from 1st January 2026, because we even talked about it 2 years ago or so at a CITG conference. If somebody says, I am coming to represent Kujuama, I am not an employee of that association, of that company, let's begin asking them, where is your numbers? What shows you are a CITG member in good standing? What is the evidence that you are an ethical person, amongst others? So, Mr. Moderator, in response to your question, how should business react in 2026? 2026 will be a year of increased compliance. You ought to be compliant. If you don't,
someone has asked me to ask you this.
Let me answer.
Okay.
If you are not compliant, and as our head for strategy has said, it turns out that these benefits on code that are being put in this budget, the minister's dreams are not realized. Then, if they now break up to have VAT and all the 4, 6, or 7 levies that may come with it, then I don't think we should come back and complain here. So, Timon, those are my recommendations generally to businesses on how they should approach 2026.
Great. Someone is asking, is the penalty regime in Ghana a contributing factor to non-compliance?
I want to expand the thing beyond a penalty regime to what I would call a sanctions regime. All right. And I have been thinking, maybe I'll be publishing that soon, that I think there should be a cap on interest assessed at audits. I think there should be a cap. I don't think there is a justifiable reason for imposing interest beyond, let me be charitable to government, beyond 3 years. Because there's so much culpability in you sitting down, coming to audit me after 5 years, drag issues in and out, and tell me to pay interest from that day when I was doing your self-assessing work for you. So, Mr. Moderator, in response to your question, is it a contributing factor? I would say yes, a contributing factor. And I would expand it beyond penalties to say sanctions. And in particular, the fact that we need to relook at our interest regime. Because I think from every dimension I look at it, it is just unfair to the taxpayer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please, you can raise your hand as we delve into a little bit unrelated, but complementary. And I want to go to Dr. Knapp about Dr. Knapp, how will this modified taxation, and I want you to combine them, the modified taxation and then the sustained tax education. To what extent will these two elements introduced by the GRE complement the 2026 budget expectations?
Yeah, thank you very much. The modified taxation is actually not introductions in the budget. It has been there. What we are trying to do is just to eulogize it, to let every person appreciate what it is. The point actually is that there are certain persons who, by the operation of law, are not required to register for VAT. So once your threshold, for the purpose of this discussion, let's use 750,000. The per the law is actually 500,000, but we have to actually amend our law. So if you look at the Income Tax Act, we are looking at persons who are in the informal sector, who are individuals, who do not operate multiple businesses, are not professionals. then they will come under the modified taxation. And we have them in 3 categories. We have the presumptive tax that has to do with installment payers. Then we have those that have to do with the turnover, and then we have those who operate on the cash basis. Now, what it is that once your threshold is below 20,000 Ghana cedis, then we are saying that we would put you on what we call presumptive taxation, where you pay a certain fixed amount as tax. So that is how we intend to look at it. Why are we doing that? We are doing that to ensure that all persons in that category who are not registered for VAT, once you make that payment, that takes care of everything. But it is not VAT, it is income tax. But you are not registered for VAT. But you have to actually contribute. The thing is optional. If you think that, look, that is too much for you to bear, then file your tax returns and pay the taxes just as any other person. Then we have persons whose turnover is above 20,000, but not above 500. For the purpose of the law, 500,000. Then yours will be the turnover. So we'll take 3% of your turnover, and that will take care of your taxes. That is the VAT and then the income tax. As I said, it is not actually income VAT, but it is also just to help persons in that category to be able to pay. The reason why we are doing all these things is to ensure that every person actually contributes. Taxation must actually be seen to be an effort by all, not by some or not by few. So, and those persons actually pay. We do know that the world over, the informal sector has actually been a migraine on tax administrators or tax administration. So therefore, we just have to think of innovative ways to get them, to pay. So it has been in the law for a very long time, but we're just looking at modalities and how to actually streamline our procedures to ensure that we are able to bring them on board. Essentially, that is how it looks like.
Great. Someone is asking, shouldn't taxation, I think Tofik is asking, why not introduce taxation as a compulsory subject for university students, and it will equip them with essential knowledge on taxation and financial responsibilities as we, push this sustained tax education? Should it be radio and all those education that we traditionally do, or we should formalize it in our universities?
In fact, for us as GRA staff or tax administrators, we would even wish that from class 1, we start teaching taxation from class 1.
Class 1.
Once people begin to appreciate what it is to pay tax, when they grow with it. But interestingly enough, that is not what is done. So for me, I think that it shouldn't be a call that should be coming from GRA. It should be a call that should be coming from all of us, that we need to actually embed taxation as part of the educational curriculum. If we're able to do it that way, trust me, we will be able to go far. There's also another dimension to it, which actually works against tax compliance. And I want my senior comrade, Dano, who is here, to take it up. In other countries, they are able to actually publish in a very granular manner all taxes and what they have been used for. All taxes collected and what they have been able to use for. So if you are able to do that, then the people are able to go along with us. But for us, when we go to do tax education, and we are saying that we use money to do ABC, and government, is also saying that they borrow to do ABC, then people are not able to align. So please, Uncle Dano, I beg you, just take it up and see whether on our website, your website, you can have it published every year. We need to know how much have we collected, how much have we used our tax monies for. Then we can get people to actually contribute. Thank you very much.
Great, Dan. Please add this one. This is from Professor Abdallah. He's saying that, Professor Ali, he's saying that I agree with Abeku on the interest computation. Now, let me read it again. So, Dan, maybe you take it up. I agree with Abeku on the interest computation, more so when returns files are not even acknowledged, nor DEX audit conducted, but after a long wait, a field audit is done and interest calculation starts years back. The GRA motto of integrity, fairness, and service must be seen at work. So, I think that a lot of interest on the way GRA punishes people for committing errors. Sometimes the interest alone is about 3 or 4 times the tax liability. And for me, I think that it creates room for, I mean, it's tempting if you're a GRA officer. If I see that this thing is about 3 times the liability and I can push you to the corner and give you some money in order to slash it down. Businessmen will do that. So Dan, please take it up for us. So let me go to the board. We have some other questions, but I'll go to the board looking at our time. Let me open the floor for Paul Amoakon. Paul, you have your hand up. I've unmuted you. Please unmute and speak.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Listen, everyone. Yeah, please. My question is in 3 folds. One is the Fed is going to be introduced? Is it going to be different from the normal EVAT we have been issuing? And 2.
Sorry, Paul, your voice was going. So if you can, mature it more.
Can you hear me, please?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm saying the Fed, the machine, is it going to be different from the normal EVAT that has been introduced? Or what's the difference? What difference will appear? Okay. And secondly, input deduction for the levies. Yeah, if we read the previous act, it clearly states that the get fund and the in-hill levies is not deductible. But reading the current bill, I don't see any repeal of that particular section of the act. I don't know whether the others passed or incorporate it.
Okay.
And the last one is if someone is currently has a turnover from, let's say, 350,000 to 400 for the past 5 years or 3 years, next year the person will not fall within the VAT threshold to register to pay. So that person have to apply to do it, or the person has to stop, or the person will be deregistered automatically by the authority.
Great.
So that's my concern.
Okay.
Thank you very
Paul,
much.
we'll come to you with answers. Let me take a second question from Emmanuel Doche. Emmanuel, I've unmuted you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Good afternoon. My question had to do with the levies on the flat rate, the 2 flat rates, 3%, and also the flat rate of 5%. I'm not too sure if the budget touched on the credits, the imports, the input credit for the levies on this, and also the inputs for the flat rates. Would that also be receiving attention, or the old law would still apply when it comes to levies on the flat rate and the flat rates susceptibility to the input credits?
Okay. Right. Emmanuel will answer you on that. I think Dan spoke about it earlier that the flat rate was going. So maybe let me give the Fed. Dan, would you want to respond to the difference between the Fed and then are we going to have automatic deregistration if today you don't meet the threshold? And then maybe Dr. Nab, you pick the inputs VAT, the input levies. I think he was trying to see whether the deductibility of the inputs.
I think I'll take that one in addition.
Okay, all right. Proceed.
All right. So let's start with the input. Generally, if you look at the law that was passed previously in 2018, there was a line in those amendments that indicated that the levies were not subject to input tax. With the current revisions of the laws, those lines have been taken out. So once those lines have been taken out, and the law says that the VAT Act will apply to these levies with the necessary modifications, it means that we are applying the VAT, which means VAT rules, which means there's input and output for those two laws. So the clause which actually took out the input deduction has been deleted from the law. So if you find it's not there, that is how that has been treated in the legislation. On the issue of the Fed, as I mentioned, the fiscal electronic devices, let me put it that way, involves the invoicing and everything. It does not include the manual invoice which you write. So when the Fed finally comes out, all we'll have will be the point of sale devices for those who will be using them, the signature devices for some, and then the electronic invoicing, where it's an electronic invoice. So basically, once the Fed comes out, all manual interventions, if you want to put it that way, would be a thing of the past when we finally do that. The issue of the deregistration and what happens with the flat rate, as Dominic mentioned, we are finalizing the practice notes on them, and within the next week or two, all those answers. What I'll say is that anything that relates to 2025 will still fall under the old legislation. So we'll treat it based on the old legislation. But come 2026, when the flat rate goes off, then, and the issue of deregistration, again, I'll say is not a straightforward thing that automatically, because we will have to look at your turnover and see where you fall, whether your turnover has increased or hasn't increased, before we determine whether you are due for deregistration or not. So I will not say that it's automatic that based on your current records, we will do some control verifications just to make sure that those we are deregistering are deregistrable, and not that we are not just because the current figures that we have for them are below the threshold, it means they are still below the threshold or remain below the threshold. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you want to add the levies? Someone wanted to ask whether the flat rate levies are input deductible. I think you mentioned it, but will you want to echo it?
The question now, what flat rate? I don't know what the flat rate levies are.
I think his confusion was
The
whether
only levy I remember that was, for example, flat rate was that what we said was that the COVID-19 levy was chargeable on those who were paying flat rates. COVID-19 levy has been repealed, and so there's no levy on the flat rate anyway. And since the flat rate, there was no, those who were paying flat rate were not paying NHIL, they were not paying Get Fund levy. We're not charging them. So it doesn't apply to them. The only one that applied was COVID-19 levy. And with the repeal of the COVID-19 levy, it's not there again. Since there's no flat rate again, it means that it's basically a moot. Come 2026, neither of them will exist.
Okay. Even though I think you got it. The beef is that flat rate is gone. You're no more having flat rate, so you are not going to have that 1% anymore. I can see Isaac Quay. I don't know whether he's in Isaac Quay. Please, I've unmuted you. You can talk.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Well, very good deliberations. And Dr. Anab, thanks for asking for tax accountability from the ministry. It's something very key. But there's one very worrying issue, which maybe we need to start averting our minds to. We overly concentrate on the text of the law, but we forget also that we are dealing with human beings. And when the ethics are not right, it affects tax collection. What am I trying to drive? In this country, when you're a compliant taxpayer, you are punished more than the person who hides and does not even comply. And it means that officers need to be retrained to manage taxpayers who are compliant, so that where there is maybe an issue of difference in interpretation, resulting in some liabilities. How we manage such taxpayers will go a long way to encourage compliance. But if we have a situation where those who come forward to do the right thing are frustrated, then they will tell those who are not complying that this is what I went through, and nobody will want to come forward. Let's change the optics, because if we are saying compliance, 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 the optics must be right. Thank you.
Great. A friend of mine said that he filed his transfer pricing return. Immediately he filed, the GRA started auditing him. So if he knew, he wouldn't have filed. I think you've nailed it. Thank you for that comment. Let me go to Francis. Is it Francis Becoin or Becon? Francis, please, you can talk. Francis Becoin. Okay, otherwise, let me go
He has to unmute. He has to unmute himself. I think he hadn't unmuted himself.
Francis, can you talk?
He should unmute. He is muted.
Yeah, I think he's not ready. Let's go to Musa. Musa, please, I've unmuted you.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for the opportunity. I think my part of my question have been asked by Mr. Isaac, but what I want to get from my mentor, Dr. Nab, he made mention of, if I heard him right, of the whistle blowing. Is there any procedure or any law that have actually been established to protect those whistleblowers? If yes, and he can help us. Another question I want to find out is, let's say you have actually blow the whistle or giving some insider information to the competent tax authority of Ghana, and at the end, how the issue is being handled. Let's say, for example, Mr. A, you have given information about Mr. A to the tax authority, and then per your knowledge in the tax law, you from where you sit, you think that this is how the issue should have been dealt in relation to Mr. A, and in effect, when the outcome turned out, it was not actually being conducted in line with the tax laws. So as a practitioner, in that particular instance, how do you manage it? Because to me, I stand to be corrected. You'll feel like maybe next time I'll not do it, because even when I reported, the issue was not handled in line with the law. And I think that Mr. Isaac also made mention of the training of the GRA staff. So these are the two things I want a clarification on, so that it will help us who are all praying for 100% tax compliance coming 2026. Thank you so much.
Great. Dr. Anab, I'll come to you, but let me add this one. James is asking, is it acceptable for GRA staff to act as personal tax advisors at a fee to individuals whose tax files they manage? It appears that the GRA staff have taken over work of tax consultants at the benefits to themselves. Dr. Anab, I don't know whether you can add this to and respond.
I see that's a mere allegation. That is what I can say about it.
Okay.
I wouldn't comment in that. But if he has any information, I think Commissioner General should get to know of it. Per our policy, it's not allowed. You can't do that. And if that is what is happening, I think that is quite unethical. And if the person is a member, I think that you owe it a responsibility to also report to CITG to take it up. But CG must also hear it, please. Yeah, on the whistleblowing, to be frank with you, yes, we have tried as much as possible to protect persons who give us information leading to tax recovery. But interestingly enough, when I was at Commissioner General's office, you wouldn't believe it. When they come, whistleblowers come. For example, when they give information, at least to tax recovery, we pay them. We give them some incentive. They come. When you ask them, you sit here, we will go and pick your check for you. No, they are not interested. They go to the accounts office and tell them, everybody, that they are whistleblowers and they have come for their check. So really, you begin to ask, what is the motivation? Why must everybody know you as a whistleblower? You report on a quiet, then we'll pick it up, do whatever we are supposed to do, and then we get to your benefit. Regarding things that are not done well, I mean, I think conduct of audit. I'm not too sure about that because in GRA, I'm not saying that we have all the competencies when it comes to audit, but I can't bet my last person that when it comes to GRA, it is not one person that does not do an audit. It is always a team. And you don't have new persons leading. You have persons who are experienced, who lead and support all others. So if you are saying it wasn't done well, perhaps the kind of information that people also give, claiming to be whistleblowers, may not also be appropriate. If you tell me that you bought something from an entity and VAT was not issued, that cannot be whistleblowing. You get it? You are only just telling me that, yes, this is the kind of thing that they are doing. I should go and take it up. But you cannot stand on that one to want to actually benefit from it. So some of them give us information, we are not able to actually make meaning out of it. If you are giving us pointers, give us pointers that would actually help us be able to unearth the revenue. Help us with information that is targeted, not to go fishing. Though we are not too sure what exactly the issue is. At the end of the day, you want to actually be paid. So if you have to be paid, make sure that you get your information right and give it to us, and then we'll go and do a good job, for you. But you see, sometimes people give information when an audit is conducted and nothing comes out of it. Then the cliche is that, oh, it has been compromised, they didn't do a good job, and so on and so forth. All those things are, yes, some may be true, but not in all cases. Is that okay? So please, I beg you, when you want to give us information, give us targeted information that will lead to the revenue recovery, so that when we are rewarding you, we know we are rewarding you for work that you have done, and not to actually give us information that we can't make meaning out of it. Thank you very much.
Let me come to you with this question. It's a bit unrelated, but then it's important. The modified taxation and withholding taxes. Dr. Knapp has explained that generally, if you fall within the three categories, you either pay a maximum of 3% if your turnover is 500,000, right? The question then is, are we going to, or are we supposed to amend the Income Tax Act to eliminate or enhance the withholding tax threshold, so that if I supply goods or let me not even use goods, if I'm a service provider and my maximum tax based on my revenue could be, let's say, 400,000, I'm not supposed to suffer 7.5%, or even let me even use 3%. Let me use the 3%. Are we supposed to enhance it based on the modified taxation?
Well, on the face of it, for those that do not like interrogating the text as much, I would say yes. But I also strongly believe that I can read into the law the differing position that if I am a modified tax person, this is how I pay my tax. So do not withhold on me. But the only thing why that will struggle is that the law also does provide opportunities for refund. So, moderator, in brief response to your question, should it be made clearer? The answer will be yes. But I think that both sides of the divide may have valid arguments as to why they believe that withholding tax should apply or withholding tax should not apply. Thanks. But let me just quickly add this point on what you said. I am an advocate for indexations, okay, for us to keep ensuring that these flat numbers do not stay in our books. And I'll give a couple of examples. You and I know that 2,000 that we've had in our laws for about a decade is woefully adequate. It's in my view put a lot of taxpayers in harm's way, and we need to look at revising them. If we had indexed properly, we won't be having some of these conversations that we are having. But I also respect, as I keep telling you, I respect the views of others. Whilst others hold the view that it should be fixed, we take our time to review and then we go up. So, moderator, that's my quick response to the question that you asked. Thanks.
Thank you, Abeko. I know your time is running and you may leave us along the line, but let me go to Dan. Question. May I know, this is from Veronica. He said, please, may I know what happens to businesses below the threshold since flat rate has been abolished? Does it mean they are no longer going to pay indirect taxes? Dan.
Okay, so let's put it this way. What it means that if you are below the threshold, what it means is that you will not charge VAT on your customers or clients. That's all it means. It means you cannot issue a VAT invoice. So whatever your service you are providing, whatever goods you are supplying, is the book rate, whatever rate, whatever amount. If it's 100 is 100 is, there's no VAT added to it. And let me correct some impression that is created. Actually, if you are exempt or you are below the threshold, let me put it that way, what it means is that you also can't collect input VAT. So the goods that you are selling, though you would have paid VAT on them when you are buying, because you will pay VAT. And that's why I wanted to clarify it. Once you are this thing, you will pay VAT on the goods you purchase. If it's excise duty, whatever indirect taxes, you pay them. If you are importing the goods, you will pay VAT at the port. The difference is that because you are not registered to charge VAT, you also do not get input. So you can't, whereas a person who has input, who is VAT registered, can take the input out because he will recover it from the government. And therefore his costs come down so that even if he applies the VAT on it, is not that, he takes his VAT out, you can't take it out. So it becomes part of your cost. So that also should be noted, that not being able to charge VAT has its own disadvantages.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Now again, Dan, are we expecting any other amendments, especially with respect to the Income Tax Act? For example, the capital allowance threshold for motor vehicle.
Okay, so in the budget, we indicated that we'll review the three other major charging laws in 2026. Income tax, excise, customs. We'll do all three. And I'm sure these things will come up for discussion then. So when it comes up for discussion, we'll have those, a decision will be taken on it at the time.
Okay.
As of now, I can't say a yes or a no. What I do know is that we will discuss it as part of the reviews that we are going to do.
Okay, so I think we approaching our time. Thomas Ansa, I'm not too sure I understand your question, but let me read it. Maybe Dan will get it. Thomas is asking, will the VAT exemption not affect marketing and sales of those who charge VAT for same kind services? I'm not sure, Thomas, if you want to unmute or raise your hand, then you can clarify it. I'm not too clear on. Okay, so Thomas, please talk, ask your question, put it in the right context for us.
All right, so it was about the modified taxation that people cannot charge VAT on their invoice because they are below the threshold. I'm looking at it from, let's say A and B are selling the same thing. One is above the threshold, he is charging VAT and everything. The other is not. We need not ignore to the fact that I should then go and buy from the person who's not charging me VAT, making the prices lower than the one who is charging VAT and affecting the sales of people. That's what I was trying to ask.
Okay, I think Dan answered it earlier that yes, there will be a marginal difference However, you know, if you don't charge VAT, it means that you cannot claim input VAT. So you eventually have to expense the VAT you paid when you were purchasing. So Dr. Knapp also mentioned earlier that we did some analysis and there was a marginal about 1.5% if all of them are operating under the same condition, or 1.5% price variation. But over time, it could wipe away. But that clearly exists. And that is one of the things that Guta raised. So I don't know whether that answers your question. Let's go to Eric Boy. Eric Boy says that GRA should train their officers on the uniformity of interpretation or clarification of tax components that taxpayers are faced with. You go to their office for clarification or interpretation on tax components, and in the same office, they give different interpretation. Okay, Eric, I want to believe that it's a comment. Maybe your experience is that you were asking for some clarification and two different people were giving you different understanding. Okay, maybe where you have difficulties, you can also write, but I think I agree with you on that. We have about 5 minutes for us to close. So since I'm not seeing any further questions and no hands raised, maybe let me go to Abeku is gone. Abeku, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. I'm happy to just
Just give me your 2 takeaways from today's.
All right. So maybe let me begin by just addressing the last 2 questions, give my closing remarks, and then jump off so that GRA, when they go after my clients will be compliant. So the first one, much as I said, let's listen to Guta, I generally don't agree much with their views on the issue of price discriminations. The average customer really does not care too much about the final price, the build up in the final price that they pay. If you are a small operator such that you are not registered for VAT, it's even more likely than not that you are buying from that bigger person that is charging you VAT at 20%, or those who will say 15 plus 2.5 plus 2.5. So if I go through that logic, I struggle to see how more often than not those smaller suppliers would say that because they are not charging VAT, their prices will usually be lower than the bigger one. It's a rare occurrence to my view. I mean, in my mind. On the second one, on the question Eric asked, I actually see really nothing wrong with you going to the same office, asking 2 people their views, and they've given you different interpretations. Right, even on this call. Looking at the last question, moderator asked me, I could give 2 or even 3 different interpretations to the particular matter. The way the revenue has attempted to address it is partially what moderator talked about. If you need what is a GRA binding opinion, the law says rights. So rights, and then the commissioner or the commissioner general would give you what is a GRA binding opinion. But if you go to the office and you expect their view to be one, you are unlikely to get it. If there's a practice note or an administrative guideline, then they may be bound by that. So maybe the issue would be we get a lot more administrative guidelines. But in terms of differing interpretation, really, I'm not too sure how we can address that other than this instrument that we've talked about. The last, but one thing I would also like to say, moderator, is to say thank you to, and I see our former commissioner who has been quiet on this call. I think it's a privilege that all previous commissioners, since we got into the life of unquote GRA, have tried to at least keep our people who are members of our institute as commissioners. And we have a duty to support all of them so that people do not frustrate you when you go there to have conversations and you realize that the technical arguments are going all over the place just because the leader may not even understand the technical issue. So, Commissioner Jamra, thank you for the role that you have played. You've been quiet. I was looking forward to learning from you based on points that you raised. If I miss it, I'll call you to do that. And then to Uncle Dan, thank you for emphasizing that you have 3 new bills that you'll be working on, income tax, customs, and excise. My plea with you is, as a technical advisor, the VAT there is gone. It's not about whether some people saw it or not. What we are saying is that let's expand it. Try and put out the bill out earlier. Let's interrogate it. Let's have fights with you. Let's realign. And then let's make laws that work for us as people of Ghana. Laws that we feel a lot more part of. Consultation, great, but give us an opportunity to look at the text before probably even going back to AG for finalization, presentation to cabinet for approval, and finally to our parliamentarians. So, moderator, thank you so much, and please permit me to jump out. Thanks.
Fantastic, Abigo. We are grateful for your insight and your knowledge that you have shared. I know you have advised a lot of us free of charge. Thank you for always availing yourself. Let me go to Dr. Nab for his takeaways. Doc.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so GRA has a very equivalent tax to raise revenue for all of us to be happy in this country for developmental purposes. But we cannot do it all. We need the support of all. So CITG, we need your support. Please, all others, report tax evaders. Report persons who are making income and they are not paying taxes. They are taking away or robbing you of your joy to actually have a lot of goodies in the country. Thank you, and may God bless us all.
Thank you. And then we'll go to Mr. Daniel. Dan, you are the policy man.
All right, thank you. But I think there are some questions in the Q&A which I want to touch on quickly.
Okay.
One is asking whether we'll apply the 15% VAT on the levies. Now that they form part of the input-output, they no more form part of the base for VAT. So with the change, the levies are no more part of the base for the VAT. There was a second question as to whether we'll have a transition period. Generally, there is a transition period, and as we mentioned, we'll provide all that information within the next few weeks so that members can attend to them. There was one about the question on the informal economy and whether it's enshrined in law. The informal economy is more of a term of art for those who are, especially when you have a cash, who are not in the formal system, they are not registered, or they are registered and they are single, they don't really work, they don't really operate that much. They are not seen that much in terms of the operation. They use cash for most of the operations. They don't have any footprints which you can track them on. So it's more of a term of art than something that is in legislation. There's another question on refunds. We are always reforming our refund system and looking at the challenges and how to make sure that refunds are paid in a timely manner. So these are things that are being worked on. We haven't always gotten it right. I agree to that. And so we are still working on these ones to make sure that we can get all these things right. And so with that, I want to say thank you again to CITG for this opportunity for us to discuss these. I believe that the discussions should continue, or will continue to have these. There are a lot more things that are happening. We would provide some documentation, some public statements to inform members of the things that are going on. And as members of the Institute, we'll continue to engage. Francis, we have some CPD outstanding on an issue we discussed recently. So remember that one also as we go along.
We will.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we would like to thank our seniors. Dr. Ali has been on the platform. I was trying to make him say something, I mean his general impression, but I think I'm not hearing his voice, but we'll catch him. And then Mr. Jamra, the immediate past commissioner, he has also been fantastic in these reforms, as we are seeing. In fact, there's a program for us to technically evaluate what has been done, and if there's any potential to amend as we go ahead, we'll do that. But it looks like time has been exhausted. So we'd like to thank everybody, each and every one of us. We appreciate your comments, the questions. So, like Dan said, we need to, take front lead in terms of the tax education. As professionals, as businessmen and finance people, we need to take lead. So you'll be seeing more of these engagements, and please come and let's share views. Funny enough, some of the things that we discuss, eventually they found themselves in the tax laws. And I believe that generations to come will also see that, at least when we were finance and tax people, we were able to suggest certain things to, strengthen the tax system that we have in Ghana. So on this note, we'd like to say thank you and have a very, very good evening. The recordings will be posted on our YouTube page. For those of you who want to go and listen further, feel free. Ask the questions under the button, and then we'll get, if we have to go to Daniel's office to go and ask him to respond, we'll do that. Thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.